Welcome everyone to this panel. I realize we stand between you and lunch, so I feel we bear a heavy responsibility to entertain and hopefully enlighten you on what I think is a very timely and important, but also a very large topic that encompasses so many aspects. And the topic is the role of AI in gender equality. So it's clear that AI is here to stay. It is very much already a part of our lives and will continue to be so. All this is reflected in our national AI strategy and also the Smart Nation 2.0 blueprint, which PM Lawrence Wong announced last year. Singapore is very clear-minded about harnessing AI to stay globally competitive and also to foster social cohesion and trust. The globally competitive thing is a given. I think most people agree AI is a useful and powerful accelerative tool to stay ahead. What we are more concerned about is losing control of this tool. And even worse, having the tool shape, manipulate, and control us. That is the long-term concern. Before we get there, while we still have some control over AI, there's still some pressing short-term concerns. How do we ensure that the information we are feeding AI or that AI is learning from exposure to us is sound, accurate, and fair? More specifically, how can or how does AI impact gender equality? Ms. Bandana Rana earlier, she asked the question, are we hard-coding old biases into tomorrow's minds? Right, so that is the question before us today. At this point, I'd like to turn the spotlight onto our esteemed panel and maybe have them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves, what they do, and their journey in tech and AI. So shall we start with you, So-Young?
Hello? Oh. Hi, everyone. My name is So-Young, and I'm the founder and CEO of Gnowbe. Interesting journey, because I'm not techie at all. So I'm not an engineer. And I say that because I think sometimes, especially on this topic of gender and technology, we have a fear of things that we don't know. And think that, in order to, and somehow, along the way, I became the CEO of an AI company because we launched our AI agents earlier this year in Davos. And so the journey has really been about solving problems. And so we had big problems to solve, which is how do we really equip and engage huge populations, with skills like AI? How do we engage our employees? How do we enable them? And so then AI becomes a tool and a solution to solve those problems. So it was never about, let me pursue AI or let me pursue technology. It was more, there's a mega problem to be solved. And then how do we take those things? So the journey has really been not one of chasing after the thing itself, whether it's, crypto or whatever the thing is. What problems do we need to solve? And I think there are some major problems around the world that we're all facing. I think as women, we have very unique opportunities and perspectives on these problems. And then, both, not just the soft stuff and the feely stuff. I think we're also rational and smart too. So I don't like to talk about, we only bring in the emotional side. I think we can be rational and emotional and bring in these solutions with the tech solutions that we create and have a unique ability to be able to contribute to that landscape, even if you don't have a tech background, and to be able to then design things in ways that are very, very human. And so I'm very passionate about humanizing technology, how we think about human AI coexistence and collaboration, and to really equip ourselves to really not be on the reactive side, but really on the proactive side of designing, delivering, and shaping the future of those things by also having our voices heard.
Thank you. Tricia.
Thanks, Lochin. I'm feeling a lot better sitting next to So-Young now because I was also not the techie, which really helps now because I was a bit nervous. getting into this. Hi, everyone. My name is Trisha. I lead policy engagements for LinkedIn across Southeast Asia. And LinkedIn, as you know, is a professional network or a jobs and skills platform. So in my role, I support government better leverage LinkedIn's data insights to help shape and understand skills, help shape and inform skills and workforce development policies. And that's where emerging technologies like AI and the fact that data is changing so quickly, that's where LinkedIn can be a constructive, trusted partner. My journey in tech and AI, well, maybe I'll just start with back in the day when I was really, really tiny. I was quite lucky. I grew up in a family where my dad owned a consumer electronics shop, a little shop in Lucky Plaza. And I think I got my hands on technology very, very young. And I remember having a PC when I was like very young in primary school. And he was also the first Apple supplier, one of the first Apple suppliers in Singapore. So I remember, the blue iMac, yeah, that's what it's called, blue iMac. I had one of those in my place. So I got, I think, exposed to technology at a very young age. But honestly, then getting into much of my adult life, I don't think I was great with technology. I was always playing catch up. So 6 years ago when I joined LinkedIn, I was definitely walked into those doors with a lot of trepidation, realizing that they might find out I am a Luddite. But I think what I've learned as well working at LinkedIn is that we're always growing, we always have to upskill. 6 years ago, maybe I wasn't talking about AI as much, but today I talk about it every day, and it's such a valuable, productive tool. So I'm excited to talk about it today again. Thank you.
Thank you, Trisha. And Anna, are you a techie?
Hi everyone, I'm Anna. Before I share about my background, maybe one of the things that, both of them, when I was asked to be on this panel, my first answer was like, no, I don't want to do it because we are a health tech company. While we use AI, I'm not qualified to speak about AI. But why I actually agreed is because I'm actually very excited about AI. And this panel, to me, is something that is long coming because to me, AI can help all of us, a lot of the women here, really equalize opportunities to really find opportunities that we never had, even if you're not technical founder or even though you're not technical. And I think my hope for AI in this, in 2025 and 2026 is really that it is not only a catalyst for change, but it is a catalyst for equity for all of us. Okay, so for me, my background was I spent 10 years in banking and started my first fintech startup, which is a financial literacy for women, because this was 10 years ago, and I found out, to me, I realized that a lot of women were earning more money, were saving money, but we are not actually making our money work harder for us. So that was what I set out to do. As a first-time founder, very idealistic, I made a lot of mistakes. One of the biggest, I will say, setbacks was that we got hacked and we lost everything except for customer data. So that taught me a lot. And 2 years ago, I actually struggled with my own fertility journey, my menopause. So I decided to start Zora Health. So Zora Health is Asia's leading fertility, menopause, and family health. And our mission is to make healthcare accessible and personalized to all of you so that, all of us can live with options and without limitations. But what that experience taught me and what is very important in this whole journey was that I realized that, it's not enough to build a digital product. You need to be a very data-driven company, especially if you want to utilize AI because, rubbish in, rubbish out, right? So one of the things that I got smarter this time around with my third startup, is to really look at it holistically and to see how we can have the data, how can we, as a small company, as a startup, really personalize information, whether it's finance, whether it's health, and to provide that advice to everyone.
That's amazing. So what I'm hearing is from the three of you, you're all shaping or trying to shape AI to make it more gender equitable and fairer in your own respective spaces, right? So Young for you in terms of the next big thing, in terms of the tools that Gnowbe supplies, how to make that, how to shape it into a fairer environment, right? And Trisha and LinkedIn, it's a platform for sharing and all that, trying to make that and shape that conversation as well in that space. And of course, for you, Anna, with Zora Health, your own personal journey in the women's space, in the women's health space, creating that kind of platform using AI as an accelerative tool to make that kind of information and help widely available to women, right? So that's amazing, and I think that's an important part of the work and part of the discussion today. But the reality, the bigger picture here, I think, I'd like to discuss the current AI landscape, right? And we talk about, Anna, you talked about rubbish in, rubbish out, right? So what you feed into AI. So, and I think the speakers this morning, Minister Matsagos talked about inherent biases, Bandana Rana talked about that as well. I'd like to anecdotally share a random experiment that Aware conducted last year. We went on an LLM, and we put forth a scenario of a man and a woman applying for the same job, right? We put the same descriptors to both the man and the woman. So what happened? The AI called the woman overbearing, while the man was described as proactive. And the AI recommended hiring the man. So that's a clear gender bias there, I think. And I'm also backed up statistically by a World Economic Forum study in 2018, which estimated that 85% of AI projects will deliver erroneous outcomes owing to such bias in data, algorithms, or even in the teams that are responsible for managing them. And these erroneous outcomes will impact more women than men. I am curious as to what our panelists think about this. Has this also been your experience? Maybe Tricia, I don't know, do you have any statistics on gender biases in AI?
Sure. So I can maybe start with the fact that technology is, of course, a great opportunity, but then also a challenge in our times. And first and foremost, technology, it can help us measure progress and change over time. And that's something at LinkedIn we're deeply, deeply passionate about. We've got about 1 billion members on the platform now, and it helps us identify how skills are changing, how jobs are changing, how AI talent representation is changing over time. So I think echoing some of the other speakers already today, we see that Singapore has got a pretty good representation when it comes to AI talent. 37% of AI talent in Singapore are women. And then we also see just globally how AI engineering skills have been increasing. So between 2016 and today, the AI engineering skills that women possess has sort of doubled on the LinkedIn platform. That said, it's also been increasing for men, right? So if I think about AI skills, AI engineering talent, and then also just tech talent in general, we still see that there's an opportunity there for women to upskill in those areas and move into those roles. Globally, 2% of male LinkedIn members list AI engineering skills, and only 1% of LinkedIn female members list AI engineering skills. And I always like to point to my wonderful friend Georgette there, who talks about how it's probably not a competence issue, it's a confidence issue, right? Some of this is about listing skills on platforms, so we have to ensure that we've got, we also support women in listing those skills. So coming back to your question on bias, I think, okay, yes, there's a data issue. There's also representation of women in these types of roles, in AI engineering roles, AI research roles. But also, an issue of bias is really a deep-seated sort of issue, right? So it goes beyond, I think, the platforms that we've built. We see that unconscious bias is this deep-seated issue. Some research that LinkedIn has done. Men are 33% more likely to receive an internal promotion over women. And so again, maybe pointing to some of the data insights that you've shared. So I think it's just a couple of dimensions there. Talent is one of them. Data, maybe my colleagues can speak to that. And all of it, that's a lot more that we can do there.
Okay. Does anybody else have any views to share?
Yeah, no, I think it's I think that that there is significant amount of gender, cultural, racial bias in the data systems, because essentially most of the LLMs have been built on existing primarily Western information. And so because the information is coming into the models are biased in the self, of course the output would be. So I think a big part of it is, and I think it will take time. It will take time for these models to change, because we need more data actually to be put inside, more female data, more accurate data to start shifting. But that's I would say a longer term strategy, right? And as we get more and more voices to speak up, also in terms of related even to confidence, right? I think women tend not to speak up as much, even publishing and digitizing, not this panel, I know Anna publishes a lot, right? But I think being able to publish a lot of content and having more female voices also starts to shape some of these models. So I think given that context, in the short term, the question then is, so what do we do with all these biases? So I think there's just a huge opportunity. We need to educate and be on, and just, I would say, like, to female, to, like, mentees, be smart, be aware, and we can wish for the future state where there's no gender, inequality. I think Davos has a gender equality forum. We went there. And it said that at the rate that we're going to reach gender equality at the current rate, 2,300 in the year 2,300. And And I was like, okay. Well, even with longevity, I probably will not be alive at that time. So what do we then do in the meantime, recognizing that the pace we're moving at is way too slow? We need to equip ourselves and understand the system that we're working in. It's a system. And then how do we educate and equip ourselves as men and women, recognizing the gender biases, so that when we look at an AI, what are the questions and the things that we need to be asking when we engage with AI to minimize gender bias and to test for it? Assume that it is. Assume that it is, right? And as opposed to assuming and going, oh my gosh, why is it gender biased? Right? Different reaction, right? So assume that it is and think, and if it's not, go, wow, it's not, great, wonderful, right? And then think about how we then plan for it. We launched a gender inclusion program on Gnowbe years ago. It's free, actually, so all of you can have it. It's fostering gender inclusive environments. And I'm very big on men and women playing an equal role in raising consciousness, like to just raise observations. So we need to keep training. I don't think we should stop this training, regardless of what's happening in the global, I'm American, by the way, so the whole global, regardless of what's happening.
More crucial now.
I think we, regardless of the political landscape, I think we owe it to ourselves and the organizations that we lead to constantly talk about it and raise consciousness, human consciousness. Not just for gender diversity, right? But, ethnic, neurodiversity. There's so many different elements, right, of diversity, and to constantly raise consciousness, because it's just natural that if we're in the minority, we're not going to think about, if we're in the majority, we don't think about the minority. It's common. It's human.
Thank you for that. Indeed. Anna?
I think my view is more on the pipeline and diversity part, right? So I have been thinking about this question for about 10 years. And to me, the gender issue is not only about AI, it is prevalent in everything, right? Whether it's tech, banking, boards, everything. The gender we have always tried to push the gender front. So I thought about it, and I think, this is structured. Is the problem? What is the problem, right? First, I think it's structural. So, but it is also perpetuated by human behavior and beliefs. So to me, there are three things. So systems, incentives, and mindset. And I think we need to fix all three so that we can actually have tangible change. Because I feel that many of us here, right, a lot of you are pioneers in this in this front. And we have been speaking about this. And to me, I think we need to see actual tangible change in the next few years. And AI is actually one way to really push that change. Yeah. Maybe just a story. 7 years ago, I started the Singapore FinTech Association, and we had a meeting. So I was one of the 11 co-founders, and I was the only woman. And one of the guys asked me, what gives you the right to be in this table? Yeah. And I looked at him and I said, what gives you the right to be here, right? And I think that's very important. I think my point is not about me, but it's really about how, as women, we also need to help ourselves. We need to learn, and we cannot be intimidated by tech or by AI.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. Applause for Anna. Great points, and for the rest of the panel as well. I think we've touched on some really key points, right? We need to take action. And I think all of us are in some way or another in our own capacity. I think there is a tension, however, with the fact that AI is developing so rapidly. So we are just humans, right? We can only move at a certain pace. But AI is really just going above and beyond already. It's just going past all expectations, beyond what we can even imagine, I think. And I mean, I was just wondering, like, Minister Masagos talked about regulation, about bias correction tools, that are being implemented now. I think the government is trying to implement that. So I think that goes, I guess, some way. And I know the Singapore government has asked Meta to target scammers who are impersonating government officials. So it's things like that. I just find there's lots of efforts coming in piecemeal from different areas, from the personal space, but in the systemic space as well, right? But Anna, and I think you mentioned one way, and So Young as well, that we can sort of take control or try and manage this situation is to have more women in the space, in the AI and tech space. So it's a pipeline issue as well that we are facing, because there seems to be an imbalance still in the number of women in AI and tech compared to men, right? So again, some context. Singapore government aims to triple the current number of AI practitioners here to 15,000, right? But it's the gender gap in the talent pipeline. I think Tricia, you had some figures earlier. Female students comprise a quarter of enrollment in AI and machine learning programs at Singapore's polytechnics and universities over the last 5 years. And our IHL's Institutes of Higher Learning show female enrollment of between 25 and 35% in AI and ML courses. Minister Masagos said today that 40% of the workforce in this space are women, only 40%. It's pretty good, but could do more. So why aren't there more women in tech and AI? Panelists?
I'm sure all of us have an opinion on this. I think the whole room probably has an opinion on this, right? Well, first of all, one of the things is there are 4 women here, and we're talking about AI. So we are perceived by someone at this panel to be expert, regardless of whether you do it or not. Right? So that's the truth. Yeah. And I have a team of engineers who know way more about AI than I do, but I'm their boss. Okay. So I say that not to say that within AI, and I don't have a degree in AI engineering. I didn't attend one of these AI shell courses. So I think that within AI, there's so many roles that you can play. It's not, you just don't have to be an engineer or coder. And in fact, coding is the #1 job that's going to be replaced by AI, to be honest. So I'm not telling my nieces and nephews to study engineering, because it's more replaceable within the next few years. So there's AI policy. There's networks. There's systems. I don't think of AI necessarily just as a skill anymore. It's the way. It's kind of going to be the way that we live and operate. It's kind of like no one learns the internet. You don't take classes on the internet. It just is. It's a fabric of how we live. So I think we need to reframe even the conversation. So it's not like I'm a female and I want to get into AI. AI, it just is. Just like internet just is. And so then how do you operate within that system, whether you're doing marketing, whether you're doing sales, whether you're doing strategy, policy, and thinking about the ecosystem, and AI is a part of that. And then when you do that, you use ChatGPT, use NEA, use Gnowbe AI, definitely put that on your LinkedIn profile, that you are an expert in AI in that area.
That's correct.
Right? So put that in there. You don't have to have a PhD or a doctorate or an engineer, and it does go to confidence, right? And so kind of sharing and learning about AI. So I think closing the gap a lot of times around confidence is we owe it to ourselves to know. There's no excuse now to be like, oh, I don't really know about AI. Shame on you. Shame on you, right? It takes 30 minutes. It takes an hour. Take a course, right?
I'd like to jump in here with a question from the audience. No, it speaks to what you're saying. It asks, how can women without a technical background still play a meaningful role in shaping AI systems and policies?
I mean, as you think about your value systems, AI systems and policies are to do with your value system. Regardless of before AI, we all have a set of values and things that we care about. We're all here because we care about a level of gender inclusion and empowerment. So how do you then apply those values and then understand the systems that are played within the AI space? So it would be the same thing you would do if you were doing ethics, but just in a different context. And now the context is a bit scarier because the cost of not doing something in the space is much bigger, right? It's a huge, I don't know if you guys heard the gray rhino concept. Like the gray rhino was right in front of us, right? And so Michelle Walker, an amazing lady, she actually wrote this book called The Gray Rhino, and it's like it's facing us, but then we kind of skirt around and we hope someone else would do it. So then how do we then get ahead of it and recognize that you all have a point of view, values and beliefs and strengths that you can apply in that AI context. But I don't think we should think about AI necessarily as a skill anymore. It's not a skill, guys.
It's just part of life now. Is that what it is?
It's think of it as the internet. So no one studies internet. So just think about that. You don't study the internet, right? You understand it, and then you apply your skills in that context.
Trisha, do you agree?
Absolutely. So I can build on what Soyoung has said. I think there are two things here. One is AI engineering skills, and then the other is AI literacy skills. So to Soyoung's point on we don't teach the internet, we should all be very comfortable using AI, that's AI literacy skills. So yes, all of us have to be really good at AI literacy, using Copilot and ChatGPT and all the other tools that we've got at our disposal. On AI engineering, I think your question, Sojin, on why don't we have more women in AI, that sounds like AI engineering talent. Now, looking at LinkedIn data, about 1 to 2% of LinkedIn members are considered AI talent. They have AI engineering skills. Not all of us are going to become AI engineers. I know I'm not. I can very sure of that. But all of us need to be very comfortable with using AI literacy. So I think the conversation needs to be how can we all be confident in an AI economy? How can we build those skills? Maybe coming back again to your AI engineering question, because I'm jumping all over the place here, is why don't we have more women in AI engineering roles? Firstly, it's a talent pipeline issue. But I also think the way we hire is broken. The way we hire is based on have you done the exact same job in your last role? Did you have a degree from XYZ university? The pace of change and how jobs are changing so quickly, it's just too fast for the labor market to catch up. So the way we think about it at LinkedIn is you probably have skills overlapped. So just say you want to move into an AI researcher role. You probably have some overlap. Maybe you're a data scientist now. There's some overlap between those skills. So how can we help, from our perspective, how can we help employers identify talent based on skills they have as opposed to using traditional signals such as job titles, for example, or traditional degree qualifications? And that's incredibly important. When you do that, when you do a skills-based approach to hiring, the talent pools for women are significantly larger. In AI occupations specifically, we will see a 12% increase in female representation in AI occupations. When I say AI occupations, I'm talking about AI engineers, AI researchers. So I think we need to rethink the way we hire. We need to break down those barriers that are sort of traditional in the labor market, and that's, I think, how we can also expand opportunities for women in those more technical AI roles.
What about building on that? And there was a question also related to that point about policy. So I thought, Trisha, you might be able to answer. How can we amass and publish more female representative data into LLM? How can corporations work with NGOs or the government in Singapore to make this happen swiftly?
We need the government.
No pressure.
I just had the word policy in my job title. Doesn't mean I actually have influence on actual policy. I think, so the question is, what's the last question again?
How can corporations work with NGOs or the government in Singapore to make this happen swiftly?
Okay. So, again, public-private partnership, obviously. But I think it comes down to corporations have. This is a broader AI governance issue that we're talking about. You can talk about it from the perspective of laws and regulation, but then also if you're talking about AI governance, how we design AI systems, how we deploy them, there's a talent perspective to that. And that's where LinkedIn comes in as a partner. So from a perspective of a platform like LinkedIn, we want to share those data insights. We want to partner with government to better understand how quickly this technology is changing, how we can prepare the workforce, how we can upskill in the right areas. And beyond just sharing data, what LinkedIn also does is we partner with mission-aligned, like-minded organizations. And that's something my wonderful colleague Sandhya does on the social impact team. So we've got partners in the room, SG Her Empowerment, UWS, Mums at Work, amongst many others, where we support the upskilling of women and also more broadly professionals facing barriers succeed in an AI economy. So I think every organization brings their strengths to the table, and that's how we can help.
I wonder whether part of the pipeline issue is also just a general one. I think, Anna, you mentioned it. It could be just structural in terms of women just having more caregiving duties, having to step off the workforce, not being able to climb the ladder and all that. Do you see that as well as a problem? Anyone?
I like to dissect problems. So the first part to me will be the early education, right? So young women. And as we all know, a lot of young women do take AI, technical skills, but they may not have the confidence to go through it, or they may not have the role models to look after, like, hey, this is someone I can be. So that's why I think, for United Women Singapore, a few of the board members are here. It's something that is very meaningful because we create STEM programs to empower younger women to believe in themselves, right? So that's the younger women. As for the middle age or older women, I think, I take a more, I will say, softer stance than so young. To me, I can understand why there is a bit of, I will say, confidence or inertia to learning AI, because I think when you think of a concept, it's always very big concept, right? AI. You think of, open AI. You think of all the wonderful engineers that are earning more than $100 million, right? But actually, I do think that, like what So-Young and Trisha said, if all of us want to learn AI, it doesn't have to be 0 to 100. I mean, I always classify learning as 3 steps, right? You can be a casual dabbler. You can take it seriously. That means, you can take lessons. You can go for hackathons. You can take upskilling trainings. And last will be when you're obsessed with it. That means you make it your career. So I think if we break it down, I think that is a bit more palatable for all of us to say that, hey, we want to be and learn AI better. But what I really want to share is, I think it's very important, because there's so many of you here, that we really empower the younger generation and women to take opportunity of this. Because I think for the first time, we have lowered the barriers of entry to entrepreneurship, to leadership, to, whether remote work, flexible work. A lot of women come to me and say, hey, I want to quit my corporate job, or I want to have a more diverse portfolio career. What can I do? I think for the first time, you don't need to do it all. You don't need to have a lot of money to do it. There's a lot of AI tools that can help you be whether a solopreneur or to have a portfolio careers. Yeah. And in terms of entrepreneurship, and I think this is very important to me, is if you empower women to believe in themselves, whether it's in technical skills or AI, women tend to start companies that are very meaningful and very, very mission driven. And I didn't come up with this. This is actually a statistically researched information. I can't remember where it's from, but when men start a company, they think about how to make profits. When women start a company, most of the time, it is how I can solve the problems that I have. So for example, menopause, right? I thought I was perimenopausal, and I couldn't find anybody to give me answers because I didn't know the 4 people earlier. And I wanted to solve it. I thought that women were not managing their money enough, and I wanted to solve it. And that goes to most women that we know, that when they start a company, it's because they know that they have this problem, especially in healthcare. The amount of research that is between men and women is just atrocious, right? They always say a seat belt was never tested on a woman. A seat belt was always tested on a small man, And I think that if we all rise up together, we can all fix this systemic issue together, even if it's small steps.
Yeah, thank you for that. We're coming close to time, so it is a massive topic. I think we sped through so many aspects of this. I don't know whether you're whiplash. I have a little bit of whiplash, but I think we tried our best to cover as much as we could. But I'd like to ask each panelist to answer one final question to wrap up. So the question is, there are many ways AI can catalyze gender equality. What, in your opinion, is the one thing that can easily be done today that we haven't done yet? Who wants to go first?
I can go first, but I'm quite sure I will never be invited again.
Say it. We'll invite you.
Okay, I think for me, in an ideal world, I mean, of course, we talk about, having AI education for younger kids. We have retraining, upskilling, confidence issues for women, right? But I think what, to me, will make a real huge impact will be if you make gender impact assessments mandatory for governments and large corporations. Yeah, and I think if you look at it like privacy, right, where you have to disclose this, then whether any major platforms or major models, you have to disclose whether, and publish how you treat women differently, whether it's in terms of hiring, safety, equity. And once you have this data and once it's public, then you can see how systemic the problem is. Yeah.
You need to measure, right? Value what you measure. And Ms. Bandana Rana talked this morning about an app in Spain that actually monitors the amount of housework that's done by men and women in a home, right? So something like that. Great. Trisha, also young?
No, I will agree with Anna. She's a bit nervous about sitting next to somebody apparently who works in a corporation. No, I agree with all of that. But so for LinkedIn, I think we want to come back to the importance of putting skills at the center of everything we do. Again, I've got so many numbers. I'll throw one more at you. Women are Women are twice as likely as men to apply for a role when they see that their skills match the job competencies of the job posting. So having that type of transparency, some of that you're alluding to as well, having that type of transparency will give women, I think, the confidence to close that gap that we're seeing. And we need to better leverage we have to leverage AI, by the way, in order for us to do more of the skills-first hiring. So that's where the tools like that can be very valuable.
Thank you. So Young?
No, I have so many thoughts, actually, that I was thinking, how do you narrow to one, right? Because I feel like there are so many things that are really important. I guess, given, my background in learning and equipping and enablement, I think where I get to is I feel like we sometimes talk a lot about these topics, but then I wonder if we take small daily actions to make a difference in our own lives, and then also if we have daughters or nieces and in the next generation to help build confidence and capability. So I think that the thing I think we can just more practically do better, because I always think about what can I do in my sphere of influence, because I had prepared to talk a point about, governance and deep, AI regulation, blah, blah, blah. But then, at the end of the day, there are things that we can do in that space. And then I wonder, how can we really equip ourselves and commit to really daily just learning something new, trying something new, being willing to apply that something new in our lives, and then also building the confidence around, there's so many topics, right? How do you deal with deep fakes? How do you protect yourself as a female if someone takes your image and posts it? How do we educate and have conversations? But if we commit to small, bite-sized actions that we can do that are tangible, that we can see the impact in our own lives and in those around us, and then in the organizations and the teams we lead, I feel like that would make a huge difference. Because we can talk big things, but sometimes I always say that transformation takes one day at a time, one person at a time, one action at a time. And then you can break it down into something that's more accessible. Otherwise, it's too big. It's too big, and then we tend to just keep going because it's too big to handle. So that's my encouragement, one action at a time.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that? I think, for me, what's interesting about AI is it's not the coder that can code that will win, right? At this point, it's the person who can prompt better. And I think women can win this war because, as you know, women speaks better, writes better, and gives better instructions.
Well said. Well said.
Got data to back that up.
Oh, great. Fantastic. So thank you to our panelists for a very enlightening discussion.